and welcome back to Bookish Theories. In today's video, we'd like to talk about Tomorrow by Together's Miniso 2 Thursday's Child, focusing on a little breakdown and analysis of the concept photos and track list to see what they can tell us about this upcoming comeback. Now, with the release of 3 sets of concept photos, an additional one that nobody really expected, and the track list to keep in mind, the concept of Miniso 2 is really starting to shape up. Today we're going to take everything into account, put everything into perspective, and really try to explain everything that we know in the context of what we've seen up until now. As always, however, the first thing that we need to do is to take a look at the press release, and this time around it can tell us quite a lot about what's going on. Now, according to the official press release, Thursday's Child is an album that follows a theme called First Farewell, which tells the story of a boy experiencing his first breakup during his transition between youth and adulthood. While he goes on a journey to understand himself and the world that surrounds him a little bit better, the boy in question is overcome by a series of emotions, each of which are represented in a different way. He experiences denial, resignation, as well as rage and loss, but all of these contrasting feelings will eventually lead him to accept that this relationship is over. Now, if we put these stages into a certain order, denial, rage, resignation, loss, and acceptance can actually be compared to the 5 stages of grief. So if the first 4 are represented by the concept photos, then we can say that the final stage of acceptance might actually be explored more in detail in the album itself. This idea might also connect us right back to the title of the minisode, because if the members play the role of a boy going through a painful path to accept that love is gone, then this might mean that all of them at the Thursday's Child was far to go. Thursday's Child here is the boy who has to confront the struggles of his journey to understand himself and the world that surrounds him, so as painful as they are, each of these concepts are like a little step towards the right direction. If we take a look at the track list, however, it seems that this minisode might not provide the solution that we expect, because by the end of the album, Thursday's Child still has far to go. The fact that they chose to end the minisode with this song might actually imply that the stage of acceptance will lead us right into the next chapter series, but for now, let's take a look at how to get there in the first place. The first concept that was released, for instance, was none other than Mess, and it portrays the members with smudged lipstick on their lips as they stand in a dark alley surrounded by trash. This is the concept associated to denial, and according to the press release, Mess portrays a boy confused by the thought that everything has been messed up after his first breakup. Now, right off the bat, this gives us a great example of visual storytelling, because in this context, the members are in the trash because they've literally been dumped by the person that they loved, so both the setting and the ruined makeup are meant to show the messy and painful situation that they found themselves in. Since he is confused and in denial about having his heart broken by this love story, the photos tell us that Thursday's Child is a good boy gone bad, and as we see in the track list, this is also the main concept that we'll explore in the title track. Now, this is a very interesting idea, because this concept was actually foreshadowed all the way back in the Chaos Chapter Freeze. Back then, one of the album versions was called You, and in the photos, the members were getting ready for a date with their loved one. Each of the boys had a different date in mind, and each of them was eagerly awaiting for the arrival of You, which in this context is none other than the subject of their affection. Yeonjun wanted to take you for a ride, Subin bought tickets to bring you to the movies, Bongyu was waiting for you at the ice cream parlor, Taeyeon wanted to give you heart balloons, while Hyunin Kai bought you flowers while he was waiting for you in the rain. In the video call clips, the members were super excited about this date, and even if it seemed like their significant other was running late, we never got to see what happened next. Now, however, we finally discover how this date went, and by the looks of it, this relationship did not have the happy ending that they were hoping for. If you look closely in the trash, you can literally see all the stuff that the boys wanted to give you back then. You can see Yeonjun's helmets, Subin's movie tickets, Bonggyu's ice cream, Taeyeon's balloons, as well as Hyunin Kai's flowers and umbrellas. Despite their best efforts, their presents went to waste, so what this connection seems to be telling us here is that everything is a mess because you broke their heart. This idea might also be confirmed by the track called Lonely Boy, because the Korean title actually translates into The Tattoo on My Ring Finger. This is a title that suggests two contrasting emotions, because if on the one hand the Lonely Boy implies that this boy is indeed lonely, on the other the tattoo on the ring finger is a sign that he actually meant for this love to last forever. This is especially relevant because back in Freeze, Yeonjun did have a tattoo on his ring finger, but since you never came, the boy is now in a mess due to his broken heart. heart. Now this is a very interesting twist because back in Zero by One Love Song, you actually fix the problem instead of creating it. If you look at the lyrics, for instance, the members not only told us the life before you was a mess, but also the life before you was trash. Now, however, we discovered that after you melted their heart, you left, and this breakup brought the mess back into their life. This is a very realistic representation of how a person actually feels after their first breakup, but as it turns out, this recurring misery was also foreshadowed in Anti-Romantic, where the lyrics explain that their struggle is a cycle that repeats over and over again. They are miserable before meeting their loved one, then despite their best efforts not to fall in love they do and are saved by their light, but when this lover eventually leaves, they fall back into chaos and are more miserable than ever. If you read the lyrics of the Chaos chapter in order, the story of the entire album describes their gradual downfall bit by bit, because after the light of their one and only is no longer there to save them, the boys descend into the abyss of chaos and essentially lose themselves. This is an idea that was also foreshadowed at the Melon Music Awards. During that stage, Nose was a special guest that quite literally played you, in the sense that she appeared in a swirl of green light that in the Star Seekers represents the star in the Eternity Girl. When she goes over to Yeonjun, the frozen wall that trapped them is suddenly melted by her light, but right after we see the shards of ice rewinding to tell us that despite of that, they're still a loser. This could mean that Thursday's Child is the anti-romantic introduced in Freeze. That is a loser who longs to be a lover but ends up losing this game and becoming a good boy gone bad. Back in Cat and Dog, for instance, the members told us that they became a good boy because their significant other was in their life. They were angels because their lover gave them a halo, but now this angel is no more because the puppy that they once were got lost and is never coming back. The boy's angel side is now replaced by the more devilish boy gone bad, and fittingly enough, this side of Thursday's Child is represented by a broken chain, which in the Dream Chapter Eternity was a symbol associated to the puma getting free. That's their darker side coming to the surface as a result of their pain and confusion, so even if they still long for that green light that symbolizes you, their denial ignites the stranger side of them that will later burn fully in the hate concept. Before we get to that, however, let's take a look at End, which in turn is the concept associated to resignation. According to the press release, this is a concept that is meant to show the pain of the boy whose heart has been broken by his first breakup. This theme is portrayed by focusing on the sorrow that the members convey through their facial expressions, and these painful feelings are also emphasized by the bare setting and minimalistic clothing. Since there's literally nothing else you can focus on, the viewer's attention is inevitably drawn to their faces, which in turn portray the devastating experience of a heartbreak. If in the previous concept the smudged lipstick conveyed the messy ending of their love story, this time around the smudged mascara conveyed how painful this ending actually was. Much like in Freeze, the absence of their you is actually highlighted by photos in black and white, and once again this connects us right back to Cat and Dog, where you was presented as somebody that shined color in their monochrome world. As I mentioned earlier, before you, life was a mess, so much so that it felt like living in black and white. The arrival of their significant other shined a colorful light in their life, but now that their lover is gone, back we go in their monochrome world. If you look closely, the only colorful detail in the photos is literally the red roses that they're carrying around, and those are flowers that are famously associated to romantic love. The color of those roses represent the same color the love shined in their life, but now the love is gone, they're falling back into desperation. Like the Chaos chapter and the Melon stage, End reinforces this idea as well, because at the end of Yeonjun's clip, his tear rewinds back and rolls up instead of down. Them falling back into chaos eventually leads their darkest side to come to the surface, and this is where hate comes into play. Now, according to the press release, this is a version that depicts a boy who is hurt and angry after his first breakup, so fittingly enough, this is the concept that represents rage. Much like the End version, Hate portrays the members in a black and white environment where the red rose is the only color in the pictures. This time around, however, there is a drastic change in the environment because the neutral setting of End has now become a chaotic mess over overcome by darkness. As we see on Subin's chest, this darkness was even able to blacken the symbol of their love, so what's left of it is a painful memory that the members are now trying to burn. The outfits that they are wearing emphasize this concept even more, because if on the one hand they can be a reference to Michael Jackson's Bad, on the other they also look very similar to Edward Scissorhands, which in turn is a character that was very loving but also very misunderstood and shunned away. In this context, the pain and isolation that the boys feel blends them with rage, so the hate concept is essentially the representation of what they're feeling on the inside. Now, this introspective aspect of hate is also reinforced with a clue among the books, because in one of Yeonjun's photos we can also see a companion to Luis Buñuel, which was a Spanish filmmaker that was mostly active in Spain, Mexico and France. Now, I don't know if they included this book by chance or not, but if they did it on purpose, then this reference is quite a choice, because Buñuel was intense to say the least. First of all, he was a surrealist, meaning that his art style was very much inspired by dreams and the unconscious. He hated the bourgeoisie, he was anti-clerical, and his works focused a lot on sexuality, violence, and the aesthetic of the irrational. The main goal of his films was kind of to force the audience to face the side of themselves that they were ashamed of, and the way he went about it was by basically presenting on screen hidden fantasies, dreams, and thoughts with no possibility of escaping them. His aim was to shock you by exposing your unconscious in plain sight, and in a sense, hate follows this concept because we are now looking into the boy's darkness reflected in the broken mirror. As I mentioned earlier, back in eternity, this dark side was represented by the pumas breaking free from their chains, but one thing that we need to keep in mind is that back in that cave there was the dragon as well. Once the chains are broken, the dragon is as free as the puma, and this is relevant because in the Star Seekers, the dragon is called the Dragon of the End. You see, in the actual story, this entity is connected to the apocalypse, but if we use the end of the world as an analogy for the ending of this relationship, then the dragon breaking free might actually symbolize the destruction of the world as they know it. Like the dragon breathing fire and breaking the chains, Yeonjun has a broken chain tattooed on his neck, smoke coming out of his mouth, and the members themselves use fire to burn the symbol of their love. My point here is that if in the story the dragon is an actual physical dragon that flies around, in the coming-of-age concept, it might actually be a metaphor for the destructive force that overcomes them after the heartbreak. Whether this is the case or not, however, the clips actually reference other videos nonetheless. In Subin's clip, for instance, he reaches out as he tries to grab something mid-air. This is very similar to what happened back in the Doom's Night, when Subin's character Saul was overcome by darkness and the Eternity Girl came through to save him with their light. Back then, his Yu came through to hold his hand and pull him out of the dark, but this time around she's no longer there, so in the darkness he stays. Something similar also happened to Yeonjun back in the VCR of the Weaver's Con, but when it comes to his clip, the video references Eternally instead. As he violently destroys his surroundings, his rampage is interrupted by flashing lights, and this scene is very similar to the scene of him having a vision in the Maze of Nightmares. When it comes to Bongyu instead, he destroys the flower like he destroyed what he cared about back in Loser Lover, but what's even worse is that in the Star Seekers, his character Viken is actually a tree spirit. He talks to plants, makes flowers bloom, and even blooms himself, so him of all people destroying the flower also implies that his hatred is destroying himself as well. Taeyeon, on the other hand, has flower petals falling on him, and this is very reminiscent of the ending scene of We Lost the Summer. Back then, the members were stuck in winter, and the flower petals symbolized their hope to go back to the summer that they lost, so the same feeling can be applied to this situation as well. Last but not least, instead, we have Hyunin Kai destroying the tape, and this heavily recalls the clips from the Chaos chapter Fight or Escape, where Kai was constantly recording stuff and making happy memories. Now these happy memories are gone for good, and the hate caused by pain makes him destroy what's left of it in a moment of rage. As powerful as this feeling might be, however, it's also a very temporary one, because after anger, sadness comes back to claim its place. This is where tear comes into play, which in turn is the concept associated to loss. According to the press release, Tear is a version that focuses on the boys' most private and intimate emotions. The close-up of the members' faces, for instance, is meant to attract the attention of the viewer on the personal confrontation with the sadness that they're feeling. The pain that they're experiencing is nothing like they ever felt before, so this overwhelming emotion almost stops time in their attempt to let go. As you can see by the looks of it, this good boy gone bad does indeed have far to go before accepting his first farewell, but to know how things will play out, we'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please think about liking and subscribing. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye bye!